Yeah, I've got my buddy Jose Cruz here. What's going on, Jose?
Oh, another day in paradise, my friend.
Man, so if you guys don't know Jose, he's a really awesome dude. He's built and scaled a couple paint companies, and we just wanted to bring him on here, get some wisdom, get some advice, and kind of let him tell his story. Dude, so why don't we just like start with like how you got into painting in the beginning? I know you had some like prior sales that like got you into that. You want to talk about that story?
Yeah, so I did get into the painting business before I got into sales.
Oh, okay, the
Um,
other way around. Okay.
yeah, other way around. So my grandfather and my uncle started a painting company down in Fort
Mhm.
Lauderdale. And I was like fresh out of college, but I went to art school, so finding a job was kind of hard because I didn't
A
live
little
in New
difficult.
York or LA.
Yeah.
So I started working with my family painting company. At first, I was just a gopher, prep helper. I had a driver's license, and a lot of the guys didn't. So I was running materials and stuff like that. Tried
Paint
my
store
hand at
runs and
painting.
things.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm a halfway decent painter, but I am not as fast as professional painting companies expect you to be.
Yeah.
So eventually my grandfather was like, "Hey Jose, you're gonna learn how to do estimates. Like you're holding everybody back, you're getting in the way. So you're just gonna go on the estimates." And that's how I got into it. I really fell in love with it. Um, Unfortunately, um, throughout the couple of years that I worked with, oh, one second, my computer's asking me to update, but I'm gonna tell it to remind me tomorrow for the fourth time.
That always says that like the perfect time, does it? I love
um,
that.
so So unfortunately, the company was just too brand new. It was too young. We didn't have a good foundation, and we couldn't sustain a salesperson role. So I was recently married at the time. I got married in 2018. So that was like 2 years after I had gotten involved with the company,
Okay.
and I just needed to make more money.
Yeah.
Like I just needed to make more money. So I got into car sales. Like I told you before, I read somewhere it was probably a Grant Cardone thing that
Like
was
car sales.
like,
Car sales,
yeah,
the hardest sales, what you said, something like that.
yeah, car sales is
Yeah.
the hardest sales job, and if you can sell cars, you can sell anything.
So,
So I
so
was
I don't
like,
know. I don't even know this little side tangent. Like my dad used to do door to door vacuum sales back in like the '60s.
that's definitely harder, and I've done some door to door too.
Yeah.
It
So
is,
he later in life he was a car sales, and then he did life insurance sales, and then he went to payroll sales. So he was in sales his whole life. And he told me, having worked both car sales and door to door, he said the door to door vacuum was harder. But
yeah,
but
absolutely.
that's not really done anymore. So I think in today's world, car sales probably is the hardest.
In today's world, definitely, because you have the internet.
Oh
I'm
yeah, they can
sure
price shop you. You can't pull one over. They just look it up. They got like 20 quotes while you're
not
sitting
at
there.
all, not at
Yeah.
all. And the car dealership that I worked at, it was a high volume Chevy dealership.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that that really like it was one of those dealerships where they would
Was it
put a
one of
price
those?
online. They would put a price online, and if you didn't finance with them, they would they
Jack
would
it
charge
up.
you a fee, $2,000 fee, and if you
Mm.
didn't trade in a car, it was another $2,000 fee.
Whew.
So a $10,000 car. I remember one time a client drove from Louisiana because we had the cheapest price Lexus. There was like a 350, right? Cheapest price in the country, he said, and he
So
was
he
ready to
drove
pay
all the way.
cash. Ready to pay cash, and we hit him over the head with a $4,500 fee, and he took home the car, but he
Okay.
was not happy. He was not happy about it. But yeah, so it was one of those dealerships. So I did, get really good at objection handling and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then COVID happened. The dealership went from 32 salespeople to six
Whoa.
within a matter of two
Bad
weeks.
leadership, bad sales tactics, well, both.
COVID, COVID. It was
Oh, just COVID. Okay, so it
yeah,
happened like
COVID.
immediately at COVID. Okay.
Yeah, like I remember sitting on the golf cart. We were one of those dealerships where we would sit around waiting for guys to come in because there were so many people coming in. I was sitting on a golf cart, and one of my older coworkers, it was like was spreading in Spain and stuff. And he was
Mm-hmm.
like, dude, if that comes over here, you know, we're we're out of a job. And I was like, Dayton, shut up. That's not coming over here. It's not.
Yeah.
He was the first person let go. And then
Wow.
yeah, and then like we all got the phone calls. Um and yeah, so during COVID, I was looking for something remote that was gonna be easy for me to transition into.
Mm-hmm.
HomeAdvisor was hiring because of COVID, they were hiring remotely.
Mm.
HomeAdvisor has a Colorado office, an Indianapolis office, and a New York office. And previous to COVID, they only hired in the city. So it really opened the doors for them. It was a good opportunity for them to explore talent nationwide.
For sure.
And
Yeah, because there's great people you can get remote.
oh yeah, absolutely. And that was the coolest thing is because I had coworkers in the Carolinas, in Florida. Everybody was on the East Coast because my team was an East Coast team.
Okay, gotcha.
Um, but it was really cool. I knew HomeAdvisor from buying leads from them with my uncle's company.
Mm-hmm.
I knew how it worked. I knew what it was, and I knew how to sell at that point. And I knew how to handle objections. So I went in with high hopes. It was awesome. Um, but towards the end of my tenure with HomeAdvisor, I was talking to so many contractors every day. I mentioned before, you at HomeAdvisor, you make 300 phone calls a day.
Yeah, that's a
And
lot of phone calls.
yeah, and
You'll cut your teeth learning sales if, I mean, forget the car sales. Even if you just do that, that's a lot of phone calls, man.
yeah, and that was another thing that I was like, oh, car sales is supposedly the hardest sales job you could do.
And
Cold
then you go
calling
to cold
sales is right
calling.
up there. Cold calling sales is right up there. And out of 300 phone calls, you probably talk to 50 to 60 people, and phone calls longer than 7 minutes was maybe 5 to 10 a day.
Okay.
Um, so it was a pretty huge drop off. But I was talking to so many people that were really rough blue collar guys, didn't really, and they're the owners of the business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Guys that, cursed on the phone. Everybody curses at HomeAdvisor salespeople. I mean, I know that for a fact, but,
Mm-hmm.
but, um, just like a lot of people where I was like, yo, if these guys could do it, I know I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So the opportunity had opened again to work with my uncle's company. And I was like, you know what, let's do it. Things were better for him. They were getting busier. My grandfather had kind of stepped away a little bit. He was still,
And that's about the time you and I met, like pretty close to that, maybe a little bit after.
yeah. I think I was with. No, no. Honestly, I met you almost right after or right before the split happened.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So how long were you with him before that?
So 2016 to 2018, 2021 to mid 2023. We
Okay,
met
so about two
last year
years.
in April at the
Yeah.
gathering of Florida Painters. And that's at that point, we had already, in those 2.5 years, we had gotten burned by marketers.
Yep.
We,
It's a common theme, by the way.
yeah. Oh, I know. I got a lot of friends in the industry. I know. I
Yeah.
definitely know.
I'm a marketer and I hate hearing it. I'm just like, oh, there's
Oh,
like so many unethical marketers out there. Yeah, that's a whole podcast for another day. But yeah.
there is. And, but marketers, contractors, car salesmen, and cold callers, they all have a reputation
They do.
of, like there's
Mm-hmm.
there's gonna be someone that's gonna take advantage of you. Um, at that point, we had gotten burned by marketers. We weren't really getting the scaling that we were looking for. Because we had grown the company when I joined during COVID. Now, like I said, it was during COVID. Without me in it, they did 160. Then we grew to 600. Then we grew to 850.
Mm-hmm.
My goal was, of course, the $1 million mark. Like I want to
Yep.
be $1 million company, of course. Um, the stress was already getting to my uncle at the 600 mark. At the
Oh,
850 mark,
okay.
he was already like, dude, this is way too much. I didn't, I remember one time he told me, he was like, I didn't start my business. I didn't start my own company to work for you, Jose. And I was like, because I
Yeah,
was,
well, because I mean, at that point, you're bringing in the jobs. You kind of got to tell them when and where to go, right?
yeah, and
Kind of.
the main thing was the expectations. Like I set an expectation and I make promises during a sale or an estimate. I want you to live up to them, and I want to make sure that they're getting done and they're getting done well. Um, so
It
there was just some
didn't. So
disconnect
he didn't.
there.
He didn't like that.
No, he didn't like that. Also, I would take on jobs that that he would get onto, and he would be like, "Dude, what did you get? What did you get me into?" I'd be like,
Hmm.
"Dude, just like I just sold the job. It's a good paying job, but but so there's just some disconnect there. At the beginning of 2023, my wife and I were already living in Port St Lucie, so I was commuting an hour and 40 minutes. I would set up my estimates 4 days a week, so I didn't have to drive down every day. But I
That's
was
still a
an
lot of
hour and 40
driving.
minutes away.
That's still a lot of
Being
driving.
that
That's
far
three
away,
hours a day.
it is. It's 3 hours a
Yeah.
day, and that's where the disconnect came of the expectations from the sale to the job to the project management and the production,
Mm.
because I wasn't able to be there all the time. Now, of course, we have great tools accessible like Company Cam that we were able to communicate somewhat through that, but there was just a big disconnect. And at the beginning of the year, I was like, already like, yo, I'm gonna have to start my own company. And then I told him I went to the gathering of Florida painters. I met you, I met Nick Slavic, I met Brad Ellison, and Brad had just left his position to start
Hmm.
Ellison Painting.
Hmm.
And
And
I
he
was
did
like,
what, 1.7 his first year, I think, was it?
yeah, something crazy
Yeah.
like that.
1.7 million your first year as a painting company. And he
Yeah,
doesn't paint. He never painted. I
no,
mean,
exactly.
you didn't paint much, but still, like,
No,
he
that's why
never
I was
painted at
like,
all.
exactly. When I met him, I was like, I could do that.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
totally do that.
Yeah.
And the presentation that Nick did, he mentioned painting for his dad's company and then leaving
Hmm.
it to start his own company.
Hmm.
I had a conversation with both of them. And Nick told me, he said, he goes, just have an honest conversation with your uncle and ask him, be like, I want to scale $1 million painting company, and it's going to take a lot of work. So do you want to do it? Because I am going to do it with or without you.
Hmm.
And when I talked to my uncle, he was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And then the months after that didn't reflect
What he said.
what he said.
Yeah.
So I told him, I told you earlier, I told him, hey, I'm going to start my own company in Port St. Lucie, and I'll work for you till the end of the year. That was all. I was only doing 4 days a week estimates anyway. Um, so I was like, yeah, I'll give you to the end of the year. And he thought I was going to be doing another branch of dolphin painting in Port St. Lucie. Um, After talking to my mentors, discovered it's not the best idea in my interest.
Hmm.
So decided to start my own company completely separate from it. And when he found that out, he just flat out fired me.
On the spot, no notice, anything, right? Just boom, done.
No, just no notice, and he owed me a lot of money for a couple months too.
Oh, he didn't pay you that?
No, yeah, yeah. I won't say how much, but
Yeah.
he's squared up by now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, he's squared up now, but he did owe
That's
me, and so that
yeah.
was
That's
really difficult because I was owed this amount, like a pretty large amount of money for all the jobs I had on the schedule,
yep.
and out of desperation, I started Seabreeze Painting Company. I was like, yo, this is what I know how to do. I
Yep.
had moved to a new city. I knew nobody
Hmm.
except for my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, and my sister-in-law. Of
Oh
course, my
wow.
wife and kids.
Yeah.
I knew 3 people here, and I was like, all right, whatever, I'm going to do it. And I started out knocking on doors. Um, I saw Jason Phillips. That's how he started his company, knocking
Yeah.
on doors.
Hmm.
He was like, I was dead broke. I started knocking on doors. Jose was dead broke, so started knocking on doors.
Yeah, especially because you
Um,
didn't even get your parting paycheck at least right away.
no, not right away, but yeah, it was. Um, so I started knocking on doors. Got a couple estimates. Um, a couple. Bob and Carol. He was,
Hmm.
Bob was super cool. He was like, we've been thinking about painting. You know,
Hmm.
he gave me, he gave me opportunity to give him an estimate. I came by, everything I know, I just put it to work. I gave them the presentation on the spot. They signed on the spot, gave me a check, and I literally cried on my way home.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, I
That's
literally
awesome.
cried on my way home. During all this, I was interviewing subcontractors already.
Hmm.
I knew that that's the route I wanted to go. I started interviewing subcontractors all throughout. I got a decent crew to do the job, made decent money, and throughout that, I was still knocking on doors and still
Hmm.
going out. Eventually, I didn't have enough time to knock on doors and started, getting phone calls from other directions. You helped me build my business profile, my
Hmm.
website. We got a lot of good automations set up with it,
Yeah.
with Zapier. And so after the first three projects, I think, was when I was kind of like steady one project at a time, maybe like a 3 day gap in between.
Okay.
Um, but excuse me. Yeah, so that was the one thing, was sales wasn't a problem for me. Getting leads was, it wasn't as much as I would like, but for the scale that I was, because I only had a couple subcontractors that were trustworthy, I didn't want to get swamped with sales, because then I would, you know, I was already interviewing pretty much everybody I could, and I wasn't getting many applications after the fact. It was such a new company. I had like 10 reviews online. They were all my aunts and my friends. um, but
That's funny. That's really
but
funny.
but and then, so interviewing subcontractors, that was one thing I used. Again, back to using Tanner's method. I used pretty much his hiring method for employees for subcontractors.
Hmm.
So I had like a 3 or 4 part interview process
Hmm.
where I would get their information or know that they're interested. I would send them a Google form and say, hey, text me pictures of in progress jobs and finished jobs. Like, I want to see a
Both.
project in progress and I want to see it finished. Because I want to see their prep work and how clean their job site is too.
I think that's really important, actually.
Yeah,
That's really,
like,
really
I
important.
don't want before and afters. Like,
Before,
honestly,
before, during, and after, maybe, but I mean,
yeah,
really, during and after is what really matters.
yeah, I want to see during and after, exactly.
Hmm.
And if they didn't send me pictures, I wouldn't get on the phone with them.
Hmm.
Like, if they didn't fill out the form but they sent me pictures, I didn't get on the phone with them, because it was very easy. Like if you can't follow the first step, you're not like, you can't follow these simple instructions. The form was like 6 questions,
Yeah.
and it was about them and what projects they like to do. And the pictures, I mean, if you're a painter, if you're a halfway decent painter, you're proud of what you do, so you taking
Hmm.
pictures. Um, so those 2 steps were the easiest thing. After that, I would get on the phone with them, interview them, kind of like, gauge their professionalism on the phone, and
Hmm.
how they carried themselves, how they talked
And how
about
they
their jobs,
communicate and all that stuff.
exactly how they
Hmm.
communicate. From there, I would set up an in-person interview near where they lived. So my mom's a private investigator. She would do a background check on them. They would give me all their paperwork.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. They would give me all their paperwork. I would send it over to my mom. She'd do a background check, and then I would set up an interview like really close to their house,
Hmm.
like like within 10 minutes of their house, and I would be like, "Hey, we're meeting here at 5." And if they didn't show up on time, or give me notice that they're running late, I would just dip. Like I would leave.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, all right, cool. That's nope.
That's it.
Bye. And with the interview process, it wasn't a 3 strike thing. It was like you're out completely. You
Yeah.
miss one of these, you're out.
Yep.
Um, and then after the interview, if it went well, I did have a couple of people that made it to the interview, and when I met them in person, it wasn't a good fit. I had a subcontractor agreement written up. I remember one guy, when I told him he couldn't wear his own company shirts on my projects, he made a face at me. I was like, bro, I just bought you lunch. I mean, you don't even have to work for me. But like he made such a sour face at me. And then he
Yeah.
called me like a month later asking if I had projects for him. I was like, no,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
but
crazy.
even though someone can make it through all the interviews, I still had hiccups with subcontractors.
Oh, you're going to. You're going to.
I had,
Are you familiar with Gary Vee? He talks about like hire slow but fire fast.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep, 100%.
Because like it doesn't matter how good you think you are at hiring. I hear this all the time. Like, I can't find any good workers. Well, number one, your hiring process is probably way too shitty. You need to put some
Yeah,
effort in the hiring process. And then two, you need to understand that even with a great process and even putting in a bunch of time, there's still going to be people let you down. You're going to have to let go, and you're going to have to just do another one. So you really just the what is it? ABH, always be hiring. I mean, you kind of
yeah,
always do. You
yeah.
know.
You keep your pipeline full with candidates because even
Yep.
if you're not ready to bring them on now, if they're interested and you're interested in them, it could potentially in the future be a really good fit.
Did you know that I built a recruiting company once? I'm not sure if you ever knew that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So I built a very, very thriving recruiting company. I think before I left at its high point, it was making in the neighborhood of, I don't know, 60, 70 grand a week. A week. The overhead on it, the profit margins were about 80%. 80% gross profit margins. It's fucking stupid.
So
Um,
why aren't you still doing that?
Long story. So the niche that we were doing it in, I'm actually considering building another one in the contracting niche. This one was not from a contracting niche. I basically built an incredibly thriving company on accident, trying to help a friend that was in life insurance, and he was like a regional manager of this life insurance company, and he was struggling to recruit. I was like, dude, why don't we just meet and see if I can put some of my digital marketing skills to the test? And I didn't even realize at the time, but marketing and recruiting are the same damn thing. I had no
Oh
idea
yeah,
until I actually started doing it. It's the same thing. You're persuading someone to either give you money and pay you to do work, or you're persuading someone to come work for you. It's still persuasion. It's all the same thing. So, anyways, the only reason we stopped is because the parent company of his got booted from Indeed, so it was no longer a viable company.
mm,
So, Indeed was the primary source. But the things you said, everything that you just said, is exactly what we did. But we did it in a very digital form. So, the very first thing I had someone years and years ago, and I just remembered it and I put it to use. Someone was telling me that when they do like digital ads, like on Indeed or LinkedIn or wherever you're recruiting from, they would put in the first couple sentences like, make sure you, when you reply back to this email, put XYZ in the heading, right? And then buried in this giant write-up, they would put one line in the middle of a sentence, say, ignore what I said up there and put ABC in the heading instead. And then what they would do is write a rule for your Google mailbox so that if XYZ comes up, it just goes to the trash. And if ABC comes in, it flags it. Back to your point, the very first thing you were saying is you get them to do, doesn't really matter what you do, but the very first thing you should do is some sort of test of following instructions. And
yep,
while your set of instructions were different than mine, it's still the same principle. You put them to a form and said, I need you to do this and this. And if they did one or the other or neither, you didn't move forward, period. And
yep.
full fucking stop. Because my logic is like, which is similar to yours, is like, if you can't do that one thing, why am I going to trust you with a $5, $10, $20,000 paint job that's going to have 50 different sets of instructions? You can't demonstrate you can
100%.
do one and you want this job. So I think like people that have a hard time hiring aren't putting the recruits through enough paces,
No,
you know?
100%. And And there's so many painters that will get on the phone with somebody. They'll be like, "Oh, you sound good. Cool. Can you start tomorrow? Like, meet
Mm-hmm.
me here tomorrow."
That's
And then
not enough.
you don't know what you're getting into.
That's
Like
not enough,
my
dude.
uncle would do
And
that,
you're risking your job because you spend your time getting that client, and then you're going to put an unknown on the job site.
like,
That's
exactly. That
yeah,
was my uncle would do that. My
yeah.
uncle would do that. My grandfather would do that because they had their cousin's neighbor's husband that just came from Guatemala that needs a job, and
Mm-hmm.
or like someone's friend from church is, cousin's brother's son that needs a
Yeah.
job, and they would come in, and then they would get fired or they would get let go within 2 weeks. And I'm just like, I would always say, like, dude, you're bringing strangers
On the job site.
into $1 million houses,
Yeah.
into in Fort Lauderdale, every house is $1 million house, even if it's like
Oh,
this
dude,
big.
shacks are $1 million because it's so it's the area. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
So
a huge liability, and I think that anyone
huge.
listening should pay attention to this because, like, if you aren't setting stringent enough recruiting processes, you're putting your business at risk.
You really are. And this person, you know, we didn't have like a decent payroll system. So the guy
Yep.
wasn't on, like, they would be on the job site, not on the books, not on like anything. It was just like, come to work, be here at 7:30 a.m. And sometimes they'd be late on the first day and he'd still bring them to the job site. And I'd be like, dude. So that's where a lot of like the headbutting were, all like little details like that. Um, but what I would say is people that would get through the process, like you said,
You still have some.
hire slow, fire fast,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. I had one of the best subcontractors I found um, got deported,
Ooh.
like literally got deported, not by anything, just he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't get pulled over or arrested or anything. He just got sent back.
Mm.
He ended up making his way back
Okay.
through the system. When they deported him, they put him through the system, and he was able to get back. And still a good friend of mine. I still, I do occasionally subcontract to him now. And then another subcontractor that I had, that's like a small horror story. He did
Mm-hmm.
get deported right before I had a decent sized drywall job
Uh-oh.
scheduled. I
Yeah.
had to scramble to get
Try to find a
somebody to do
replacement.
this job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had budgeted. It wasn't a big drywall job. Let me backtrack. I had budgeted like $1,500 for labor, so that's what I was going to pay him. That's what he wanted, and I was looking for other subcontractors quickly. I was getting people telling me that they would do it for $3,000. They would do it for
Mm.
2,800, 2,500. The job was already sold. It paid $1,500. Um, thank God, like literally through prayer and patience, I got my friend he works at a pretty big operation. He did it on the weekend for me. So he was like, I'll just do it as a side job. I'll do it on the weekend for you. He knocked it out. The other horror story was I had a really good subcontractor. I had It was so good I got complacent that I stopped interviewing other subcontractors. And goes
Ooh,
back
that's
to
a big
always be
one.
hiring. Goes back to always be
Mm-hmm.
hiring. I had stopped interviewing other subcontractors because this crew was so good, so efficient, so friendly. It was a married couple,
Mm-hmm.
and they had like 3 helpers. I got a call one weekend, right, from the wife, and I'm out to breakfast with my family, so I ignore it because I'm like, dude, it's Sunday. I'll call you back later. Then I get a call from the husband. I'm like, all right, this like it's got to be important or whatever. I answer, and he just tells me, he's like, hey man, I just want to let you know that I can't work for you anymore. He's like, I can't come to work. I can't finish that project that we're doing. Um,
Wow.
He's like, I can't work for you anymore. And I was like, what? Like, what? Like, why? Like, what do you mean? And he was like, oh, long story short, we're getting divorced and I'm leaving the state. And I was
Wow.
like, you're leaving? I was like, well, I was like, can you finish this job? Like, can you finish it? Like, I don't, I'm sorry. Like, God bless her, but I need you to finish this job. And he was like, no, man, I'm leaving like tomorrow morning at 6 a.m.
Whoa,
I was
that's
like,
short
dude,
notice.
yeah, it was Sunday. It was Sunday. So like we had to
Yeah.
resume on Monday.
Wow.
And
What'd you do?
what I do, I, I called someone that had applied that I didn't put through the process.
Ah,
I didn't put them through the process before. I went through like a very quick that afternoon process with them. I was like, hey, like, can we get on a phone call? He had already sent pictures and filled out the form. So that
okay.
was
So
the
he did
good
the
thing.
first steps. Yeah.
He did the first steps, but I had gotten on the phone call with him before, but I never set up an interview with him in person and never put him on a small job to start. But I called him that afternoon. I was like, hey, like, what you doing tomorrow? What you doing tomorrow, buddy? I
That's
was like,
awesome.
can you meet at Starbucks in a couple hours? I was like,
I'm
dude,
sorry, I'm laughing at you, but that's really
oh
funny.
no, dude, please laugh, because it was.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
so I met him at Starbucks. What had happened with them, and I won't go into too much detail because it's their family business, but I'll let you draw conclusions. Anybody watching draw conclusions. He got arrested for domestic abuse afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. So,
So
yeah.
yeah, um, so that happened. Thank God the subcontractor that I had brought on, he was, halfway decent. He wasn't as good as them, but he
But
was
he was
decent.
able to finish it up and he did
He was
okay.
able to finish the job. He was able to, I had to come out $200 extra out of pocket from what I owed subcontractor A to subcontractor B. He was
Yeah.
$200 more. So like
But
it
in the
definitely helped out.
context, that's negligible. Who cares? You got the job
Yeah,
done.
exactly. Like got the job done. The profit was a little less, but I didn't really
Hmm.
care. It was the client was happy. Um, but that was such a like hectic afternoon. And I had, dude, we went to church, we went to Cracker Barrel. We were like, I was chilling. It was Sunday, I was chilling. And
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon came and I was
Yeah.
like, my anxiety was on
Oh
100,000.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um,
I know that feeling. I know that
yeah, because
feeling.
I really
Everything's
didn't,
rushed.
I didn't want
Yeah.
to like tell the client, of course, like,
Well,
oh,
you try. I mean, it sounds like you tried to fix it before you told the client. I'm sure you had to tell the client you had to switch crews for some reason, but because obviously different people are showing up.
so actually the house we were working on was was through an estate attorney.
Oh, so it was
So
vacant at the time?
it was vacant at the time.
Oh, you lucky dog, dude.
it was it
You
was
lucked out.
vacant
I
at
mean,
the
as far as
time.
like the timing and the place to have that problem, you lucked out. Because like I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, so there's a husband, wife, and a kid and a dog over there that already know this painter couple, and now you got to insert another crew. You're gonna have to tell them something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it
Yeah,
was vacant. It was vacant at
that's
the
awesome.
time.
That's awesome.
And I had so it was a little more than 200 because I had to finish a bunch of stuff
Oh,
that
you
I
actually did
didn't.
that in a brush.
So I had subcontractor B do what I couldn't do myself. And then the rest of it, which were the touch ups and stuff like that, I ended up doing myself.
Oh, okay,
Um,
gotcha.
so so yeah, like I spent like 2 days there doing everything that I needed to do. But
So I mean, what do you think the lessons learned from that in the hiring process are? I mean, actually have a process for hiring, I think.
actually having a process, um, one Another thing would be something that I got from Nick Kelly is everything in my business is my fault, right?
Yeah, I love that.
So everything in my business that happens wrong is my fault. And what had happened here, and I because I know the reason is we had on Friday the week before. So like this happened on Sunday. On Friday, I went to Orlando for the Spanish speaking PCA event.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a Spanish event that they had. It was a 1 day event.
I remember that.
And
I didn't
they
go because I don't speak Spanish.
there were a couple guys that didn't speak Spanish up there trying to speak Spanish.
Oh, you don't. I know cerveza and I can count to 10. That's about all I got.
Cerveza at 10. You can order 10 cervezas.
I can't. I can ask for the bathroom too. I know that much. That's about all I got, man.
um, so
But you went there. You went there, and
I
that was
went
the
there.
Friday before.
On Thursday, I had told them, I said, hey, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. I'm going to this Spanish event. I'm going to this Spanish PCA event. And they were like, oh, we saw that. We want to go too. Like, we were thinking about going too. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, here's the link. Like, here's the link to register. Registration had closed by then.
Mm.
And I was like, hey, I don't know. Like, I told them, I gave them the option. I was like, hey, I don't know if you're going to be able to get in because you're not registered. But if you want to go, you can, you could just come and like under my company and I'll try to get you in. I'll just be like, hey, they're with me. It's a free event. So I doubt they're going to say anything. Apparently, so they had decided no because they wanted to go as their company to grow their company. They were subcontracted for me. They had goals of building a bigger company. That's
Yep.
great. Good for them. God bless them at the time. But so they decided not to go. And apparently that sparked a fight that like got that started an
that kind of
argument.
like, yeah. Well, I mean, you can't predict that. That's I don't.
No, but I could have just
That's not that's not where you went wrong. You went wrong by not having another crew. You didn't have a safety net.
I didn't have a safety net. That's definitely another thing. But when I was like thinking about it after the fact, I was like, man, I should have just told him to come with me. Like I should have just had him ride in the truck and just roll.
But you can't predict that part. That part is like they're so nuanced. You can't predict what's going to set one person off or make a couple fight or make someone do whatever. I don't know, maybe someone like relapses. I mean, there's just a myriad of things that people can do. That's really, really hard to predict. I don't think that's where you went wrong. I don't think
the safety net is definitely, like I told you, when I found them, they were so good.
You stopped hiring.
I stopped hiring. Yep, I stopped hiring because they were so good. And
I think that's where you went wrong.
Yeah. That's the main reason. But
that's it.
But yeah,
I heard from someone a long time ago, and I forget who. It was at some conference I was in, but it was so long ago I forget exactly who it was. But the saying stuck with me. They said the worst number in business is 1. If you have 1 employee, 1 marketing channel, 1 sales guy, 1 credit card processor, like imagine you're ready to take a payment and your credit card processor stops. You don't have a backup. Like literally everything in your company should have a backup.
Literally what's happening to everybody with Stripe.
Yeah, like a whole Stripe and Drip Jobs thing. Like, and that's not Drip Jobs' fault at all. That's just Stripe being, a-holes. They're, calling paint contractors high risk. And so they're either holding funds for a long period of time or they're canceling them. And contracting companies do have a higher chargeback than some other industries, but I still wouldn't call paint contractors high risk, but by their internal definition, it is. So if you've got your only way to collect money is Stripe, and then they suspend you, it's your own fault for only having Stripe. Dude, I got 5. I got 2 different Stripe accounts. I got QuickBooks. I've got PayPal, and then I've got a business, not Zelle. What's the peer-to-peer thing? Not Cash App, not Zelle.
You got Venmo?
Venmo, a business Venmo. So, and that's not the same as a personal Venmo. So I have those.
You could run credit cards through a business Venmo.
Business Venmo. You don't do it personally because it's just it's assigned to your Social Security, not your EIN. But I've got a business Venmo too. So like I've got 5 different ways to take payments. Like I'm not taking a payment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you just have one of anything, in your case, it was one subcontractor crew, you know,
Yeah, it was bad.
that's,
And I had and then my other subcontractor crew that I was comfortable with, the main guy was still in Guatemala. Because I would have called him.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
And then I didn't want to use any of the subcontractors that I had hired through the same process for my uncle. Because that was
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
was that was a big thing. I just didn't
Didn't
feel
feel comfortable
comfortable.
crossing
When
that
I
bridge.
when I first started the company, I did once. A guy that he didn't use anymore that we
Mm.
had, he had called me. He was like, "Hey, I saw you on TikTok. You got any work for me?" And I had
That's
worked with him before. I had, we had a good relationship. I don't know why my uncle had let him go because he was, he was a good painter. He was really affordable. Um, so he did one project for me that was like came out really
yeah.
good, made a good profit on it. But
But like the learning lessons here we talked about are like have a process, make the process harder than you probably think it should be to weed out people,
yeah,
and then always, even once you get hire somebody, don't be comfortable in setting that one person. Still, you need to be hiring. You need to be,
yeah,
yeah,
yep,
yeah.
absolutely.
I
Like,
think those are big lessons for sure.
yeah, I need to hire right now a salesperson for like
Ooh, sales is a whole different thing.
it is a whole different thing, but I am like,
So hit me up. The recruiting company I told you I built was a sales commission only sales recruiting company. I have a lot of insight on how to build sales teams remotely.
all right, sweet.
Yeah,
We'll get together on that because I
but it's
definitely
interesting. Like recruiting is just recruiting, and marketing is just marketing. You ever heard of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Like basically at
know.
the core, everybody wants and needs the same thing. You know, it really doesn't matter where you are, who you are. You might package it differently, talk about it differently, but we all want the same thing. You know, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of interesting when we break it down like that. So, dude, what are you doing now, man? I know you're still growing. What's up in the Jose world right now?
So the Jose World, Seabreeze Painting Company came under a larger company. I grew it up. I did all the right things. Got an opportunity to bring it under another company, which was honestly the biggest company in Port St Lucie.
Oh,
I'm
that's
sure
cool.
you remember when I was getting my Google Business profile. I did a satellite office. I did a shared workspace
Yep.
because within 1 mile of my house there was three of the biggest painting companies in Port St. Lucie.
Yep.
And Port St. Lucie is a small town, so I set up a satellite office. One of those companies, um, I ended up subcontracting for them for a little bit and got the opportunity to take over their marketing, their sales, and their project management team. Um, and I really had to, we talked about mind garbage before, and I really had to let go of a lot of mind garbage when I took the opportunity, because sometimes people think about things too long and the opportunity goes away. It's not available when you're ready for it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready to make the move at the time, but I said, I talked to my wife about it, talked to my mom about it, prayed about it, and I was like, all right, like let's do it. Let's do it. I was at the point during that whole situation. I was at a point with Seabreeze where I was literally on my computer typing up a pitch to one of my good friends in the area who also owns a painting company, another one of my big competitors. He also has a painting company. We would have lunch like once every 2 weeks. And I was writing up a pitch to him to merge our two companies when my now partner called me.
That's crazy.
I was
That's crazy.
literally, I was sitting at my desk typing up this pitch, and my phone was ringing, and I was like, "What's he calling me for?" Because I had spoke to him a couple times beforehand, but it was all like One was when I opened up my company. I called and introduced myself to every other painting contractor in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, got some mixed feedback with that. Some
I'm sure you did.
why are you on my phone?
Yeah.
Hey, good luck. Good
Yeah.
luck was a big one. Like, huh, good luck. Like,
Yeah.
all right, dude. Like, I'm just calling you to say hi and introduce myself so you know who I am. And then another time I had invited him to that clay shooting from Benjamin Moore thing because they
Oh
had
yeah.
an
Yeah.
extra seat, so I had invited
Yeah.
him to it. So yeah, the phone started ringing. I answered the call, went out, take a look at a job, started working with him, got the opportunity to take over the sales and project management staff from probably a couple weeks after that, and now we're here. We have so it's called Home Perspective Painting. The full name is a little bit of a mouthful, but it's Home Perspective Custom Painting and Staining.
Okay.
And we have two offices right now. Last year they were above seven figures. This year we're looking to hit 3 mil.
Oh, nice.
January, yeah, January was the biggest month on company books.
Okay.
I personally sold 200,000 in.
In 1 month.
Yeah, now one of them is a large commercial job
Okay,
that's
but still.
ongoing and
Yeah.
it's billed weekly, but
Mm-hmm.
we landed the job in January. Um, but 85,000 was pure residential repaints.
That's a lot
Um,
for residential, dude.
yeah,
You know how many people listen to this right now that would be freaking ecstatic if they could close $85,000 in a quarter, much less in 1 month.
yeah.
Residential. That's a good bit of work, dude. That's a
I
good
was
job.
checking my drip jobs metrics every day after having a good sales day. I was going on there. I was sending it to my family group chat because
Mm-hmm.
everybody was excited for me, with this new opportunity. And I was like, look how I'm doing. Look how we're doing. Like, this is great. Um, so
By the way, like it takes like I think it's like 83,000 a month times 12 or something like 83,333 or whatever to
yeah,
be $1 million company.
yeah.
Your
And
average basically you have to average $83,000 a month and you hit 85. So I mean, I think even just
that's
personally speaking,
residential.
I
That's
know,
residential.
that's just residential. You hit that at least for 1 month, and I'm sure you're going to continue on that trend. But you hit those kind of numbers that you were aiming to hit in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a beautiful thing. The first week of February got a lot of signed proposals. Like my February is already off to a good start.
Nice.
Looking to build on it. Commercial with by myself, I never did commercial. Never did commercial. Never did cabinets. No new construction things like that. And with this team, we have the systems in place.
To be
I'm
able to
I'm
do that.
sitting in our shop. To the right of me is a there's a window with the spray booth and the drying racks and everything, like to do
Oh,
it
they got
right.
cabinets right there. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a proper setup. That's why I never wanted to do it. Um, there's a specific way that I wanted to do it.
Cabinets are
Also
tough,
with
dude.
subcontractors,
Cabinets are real tough.
cabinets are real, real tough.
Yeah. That's
And
not
then
like
and then
you think of the latex stuff that slaps on the wall, dude.
it's
Just
not the
about any
same.
paint, just about any paint will bind with just about any wall. I know there's some exceptions. I know
Yeah,
oil paints, primers, colors, and stuff. But for the most part, most paints are going to bind with most paints on walls, right? But cabinets, dude, they're
no,
so finicky. Those finishes are they're basically on par with like automotive finishes. They're
they
incredibly
are.
difficult to deal with. The finishes that you have to have and the prep work you have to have before you even start spraying is incredible. It's gnarly. It's no joke.
No, that's why I didn't want to get into it when I was on my own because first I was using pure subcontract labor.
And you that's a heck of a subcontractor crew to trust for that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I was already like, not gonna do it.
All the
And
crews I know that
then
have subcontractors, they do subcontractors for like interior extra work, but they might have like actual W-2 employees for their cabinet people. Yeah.
exactly. Or if they are subcontractors, they're only working for that company and they're only doing cabinets.
Okay.
Like that's like other companies that do subcontract cabinets that like those cabinet projects probably only go to one crew.
Yeah. I don't know or haven't heard of a lot of cabinet subcontractors. I'm sure they're out there, but I don't know of many.
No, yeah, exactly. This is
Yeah.
just me thinking the only logical solution would be
Yeah.
if it's one crew and they'd only do cabinets. New construction, never did. I did a couple estimates by myself for new construction. I was like, nah, not for me. Here we
Yeah.
have like the systems and stuff. And then commercial work, I would not touch it. Um, but we've done a hotel or like
Wow.
already this year. We painted a hotel. We got a 32 townhome project. We got the project we're working on right now. It's 50 stair rails for
Oh, I'm sure that's good money, but that also sounds obnoxious.
it's we
Tedious
started
work.
on Monday. We started on Monday, and the prep work for them is already like I could tell
Yeah.
it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff going
Yeah. A
everywhere,
lot of
and
prep work for that.
and there's 50 of them, so we're gonna be there. If the guys could do 4 a week, which is the goal, this week we're hoping to get 2 done because it's a learning week. We're just trying to
Mhm.
get in the groove of things, but if we could do 4 a week for the remainder, hopefully we'll be out of there in 3.5 months. But it's on the schedule for 5 months just in case.
Wow. Just in case. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a lot. That's a lot of time. That's a tedious job. A
it
tedious
is.
job.
Thankfully, the property management company they're paying out every Thursday for the
Oh, okay.
invoice
So
them on.
you still get cash flow.
Yeah, exactly. We're
Yeah.
invoicing on Monday, paid on Thursday for the week before. So, which is
Nice.
like that never happens in commercial work.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
They are they are beautiful people.
I mean, I have tons of clients of mine that are like they do split commercial and residential, and they're like, man, my cash flow sucks because I got this big commercial job and I'm net 90 before I get this big check. It's
Hmm.
just that's the norm.
Yeah, it really is the norm.
Mhm.
When I worked for my uncle, we had a contract for Baptist Health, which
Big
is
company. They're up here. I have one right by
yeah,
me.
cool.
Hmm.
So for those watching that don't know Baptist Health, they're the logo on the Miami Heat jersey.
It's a
Like it's a
giant
big
hospital.
hospital chain. Yeah,
Giant
a
hospital
big
chain.
hospital chain. We had got
Hmm.
in there to remove wallpaper from their Boca hospital,
Ooh.
and yeah, so with my uncle, we were always doing a project for them because it's a campus.
Hmm.
The Boca Hospital is a campus, so they have the main hospital, and then they have doctors' offices all around that do
Yeah.
surgery in the hospital.
Most
But
of them are like that. They're like one big building with a bunch of satellite buildings, and the
yeah,
big building is still multiple floors. It's like they're big.
they're
It's not
really
like
big. Yeah,
some little neighborhood doctor's office. It's like a true legit giant hospital.
it
Yeah.
is. It's like a college campus, but
Hmm.
it's a hospital. It's all doctors instead of
Hmm.
students. So yeah, that was we got paid every 30 days for that.
Okay, that's
Um,
still reasonable.
it is still reasonable, but that did suck. And then we did a job for the state once for Fish and Wildlife (FWC), and that took like 90 days to get paid. That
Yeah.
was in that 90, and that was a big job that really that was a punch in the gut.
I was talking with somebody like one of my clients was having a tough time with that cash flow. And we're just like brainstorming ideas. I'm not a big fan of leveraging credit per se, but there are, if like someone like really gets in a pinch, there are specific lending companies that will lend on the accounts receivable. In other words, if you have an invoice out for 100 grand, they might lend you a percentage of that invoice in lieu of the invoice goes through like like goes through another
Yeah,
person, then they get paid and then you get the rest. You know what I mean? It's very finicky, but I've seen some people that have like really big cash flow issues with giant corporate jobs use solutions like that just so they can pay their crews, because not
yeah.
many small contractors can afford to shell out 50 grand in payroll on $100,000 job and wait 3 months before you get yours. You
Hmm.
know, that's
Hmm.
tough.
I was talking with my friends because, like I said, I have a lot of friends in the industry. The PCA has been great to me, and the mentors and everybody that is a
Hmm.
part of it. Everybody's been awesome that I've met. I have a couple of friends, and we were talking a couple of weeks ago that like 6 grand, a 6 grand hit to a 50% of painting companies will put them out of business. I like
That's small. That's
yeah,
wild.
yeah,
That's
like
yeah.
I
I would believe it
I
though, because
really
most painting companies are one man crews. So 6 grand might be all they're making for the month. And then if you can't
Yeah,
do that whole month, you're
I think
done.
Nick Slavik says that like 90 or like something north of 90% of painting
Or
contractors.
one man crews.
Well, he says two.
Oh,
Like the
two. Okay.
PCA statistic is two-man crews is the majority
Okay.
of painting companies. So it's
Yeah.
usually
So
the
probably
owner
like
and
a person owner with like an assistant kind of thing.
100%. That's
Yeah.
like the vast majority of painting companies. So if you have, you know, three people, you're in the top 10%. And if you have more than five people, you're probably in the top 2% of painting contractors in terms of size.
So I told you this before, but I have a background in painting too. My mom had a painting company,
Yeah,
and I grew up in it, and I worked in it for a long time before I went into the Air Force. And I was basically their, I guess, crew lead. Well,
yeah,
I managed all the crews. So my mom and one other person would go around and doing bids and stuff, and I was operations manager essentially. I was
yeah,
running all the crews. We had 10 crews, 10. Yep.
yeah.
And they were all 3 to 4 man crews. There was no 2 man crews. There was no 1 man crew. So we're talking about like 35 or so people. It was a big operation, you know.
Yeah, it sounds like
Um,
a really big operation.
yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot, but it was still like, you know, this is kind of like you with your family business. Like you wanted to go a certain way, and then you couldn't because of conflicting ideas.
Yeah,
And I realized at that point, like that wasn't the place for me because like I wasn't going to be able to do the things that I saw that needed to be done.
yeah. No, 100%. And I think that happens to a lot of younger people that do work for their families, company. It's happened to me. It's happened to friends.
Hmm.
Um, and it is unfortunate, but the systems and stuff in place to do it yourself, they're out there,
Yeah.
and
I mean, with so many coaches and mentors, so many like Facebook groups with awesome information. The PCA is an amazing place for
yeah.
information. Like all of that, between all that stuff, like there's just no shortage of information at this point. You know?
No, if you want it, you'll get it. Like
Yeah.
if you want it, you'll get it. And you first off, you just have to ask because
Yeah.
so many people in the painting
Well, back
industry.
when I helped you, when you branched off from your uncle, you literally came to me and asked, and you literally said, "Hey, dude, there's some money issues on this separation. I need to be able to get some leads. I need some help
Yep.
as cheaply as possible." And I sent you like a dozen free training videos that I had, and you literally followed them to a freaking T, and
Yeah.
then you crushed it. I mean, that's literally what you did.
Local Growth Academy is awesome. I definitely, and like I said, site funnels. Site funnels was one of the, like, first off, super affordable and
Yeah,
super easy to use. Like that, it took me 4 days to build my website, but it came out pretty nice. Like,
dude. I honestly think, and I'm not exaggerating. I've taught a lot of people like how to build their own website. A lot of people have followed my videos on how to do it. Yours came out better than anybody else that I've seen. Like we didn't do anything. Your website was freaking awesome.
all
But I
right,
think one of the big things is like, so being in website and marketing, one of the things that I think, remember a minute ago, I said, I think marketing and recruiting have a lot in common.
yeah,
And I think the big thing, there's two main areas I think they have in common. Number one is you have to tell people information.
yep,
So it means you not only have to say something or show something or get them to watch something. That's the first part. But then you have to get them to comprehend that something. And so the general rolling joke that we have in our agency, and we have to say to the clients too, is like, dude, people don't read. No one reads. Like no one reads. No one watches your entire video. I guarantee you, the people that are still here on this video, there's like 2% left. Everyone else was in the first 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Because people watch the beginning and the end, and the middle goes away. So,
yep,
like when you talked about with your instructions with hiring, that's why I put those instructions in the middle. That's why the thing you were doing was almost exactly the same, is because you're trying to see that few people that actually read. And so what's interesting, I think, is you just followed my video. That sounds wild, but most people watch the first couple minutes and they're like, well, I don't know what's going on. What's wrong? Did you read the rest of it? Did you watch the rest of it? No. Okay, well then go back and do it again. I mean, all you did was watch the video I gave you, and you did exactly what I said you did to
yeah.
do.
It was
That was it.
it was pretty straightforward. It's cut and dry.
Yeah. No, I
It,
think you did a really good, really, really good job on that. I think, in lieu of the situation that you were in, like you're a really prime example of like what could be done with little to no resources. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You're now doing like 85K months in sales, built from like zero, and you did all of that yourself with
Yeah, I was
not
in the
hiring
negative.
not hiring a marketing agency, right? You
Right.
didn't have to pay a business coach. You just did it with free resources. So
Yep.
like no excuses for real. You know what I mean?
No, I pretty much had maxed out my credit card to get a couple shirts and some door hangers
Yeah.
made, and to get my LLC and stuff set up.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that
Yeah.
was that's how it went. So if anybody wants to take anything away from this, it can be done. You just have to ask people and definitely network with as many people as possible, because there are so many good people. I know that there is a lot of doubt with head garbage. You might have doubt on, like, oh, will this person judge me, or are they going to think I'm like trying to steal their thunder or whatever, or like copy them. So some people will straight up let you copy them. Like, I've had friends straight up send me their Facebook ad copy and be like, here, do this demographic, and like
Yeah.
just run with it. Like, it's
Yeah.
all you have to do is ask. It's just like a painting project where all you have to do is ask for the job. Like, you just have to ask. That's
If you
all it is.
never ask, the answer is always no.
Exactly. 100%.
I think that's one of the biggest things to sales, honestly. If you never ask, the answer is always no. You just got to ask. It's sometimes hard to ask. We fear rejection, fear rejection, judgment, and all sorts of other negative things that can come about. But I think, like, for me, one of the biggest things to helping me grow individually and as a business is just understanding that it's okay to suck before you get good. You can't get good at anything until you are okay with sucking first, because every
Yep.
expert was once a novice. Every Olympic gymnast or swimmer, Michael Phelps, how many gold
Yep.
medals? At one point, he couldn't swim at all. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
there was a day where little Michael, I'm sure, he might have came out. Maybe it was day 2 for him. I don't know. But at some point, Michael Phelps couldn't swim at all. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So like, growth is not this invisible, magical, one-time thing. It's incremental over a period of time, and you got to be okay with sucking first.
Yeah. When
And
I started my business, I remember my barber telling me, he just straight up, he said, Jose, you got to eat shit to get ahead.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, you do. Yeah,
It's the delayed gratification. Is that what it's called?
yeah.
Yeah. You got to know that what you're working towards is worth it, and get rid of the mind garbage, old habits, old thought processes,
Hmm.
old friends that aren't going to lift you up. Like, those types of
That
things.
was a hard one for me, but I eventually did that.
Me
I've
too.
cut quite a few people out of my life. Some people that were lifelong best friends, and I don't speak with them anymore because we weren't serving each other. I wasn't serving them. They weren't serving me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, dude, I still have friends that are trying to be rappers. I'm like, bro, bro,
The
bro, we need electricians. We need painters, man. Like you're like, I
world does not have a shortage of rappers.
not at
No,
all.
no.
Yeah, so I've had to cut a few people off because they're just, unfortunately just not in the right space for right now. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
God bless them. I just talked about delayed gratification. I just talked about eating shit to get ahead, and hopefully they do. Their dreams do come true. But for me and my goals, cutting out the BS, cutting out, like I said, old habits, mind garbage, self doubt, like things
I
like
think that's
that.
super important.
Super important. Super
I was
important.
I was talking with you earlier, like before we went live here, but I was talking about a call that we had with a guy that was an older guy, has a company that was really successful, and then it just kind of slowly declined.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he reached out to some people on my team and myself, and had some strategy calls and wanted help. And we tried a bunch of conversations. I even got him connected with Tanner with a free, I think Tanner was going to give him 90 days of free drip jobs, which was way above norm. Like we were
Yeah.
like, dude, this guy's broke. This guy needs a hand. Can you please help us? And he was like, absolutely, let's do it. Jumped on a demo with Tanner. We got marketing started and all this stuff. Completely pro bono, by the way. Rare case of that, but the guy really needed help. Dude did a demo, signed up for drip jobs, canceled drip jobs the next day, said, I don't think this will help my business. And I'm like, bro, you know, I think the cliche saying that comes to mind for me when I see stories like that is like, you can't get change if you're not willing to change. You know what I mean? You can't change your situation without changing you. You know, now you could be doing something different. It might be thinking something different. Might be hiring different. It could be changing your environment, whatever. But something in what you're doing is causing your circumstance. And in order to change your circumstance, you have to change that. Like you said, changing the friends around you, mind garbage, all sorts of that stuff. But it might just be habits, what you're actually doing, how you're dealing with customers, the type of marketing. It could be something as simple as the marketing. It might be one thing, it might be 100 things, but whatever it is, you can't have change without being willing to change.
Dude, it could be so simple. It could be as simple as the time you go to sleep at night.
Dude, that's a
Like,
big one.
like it literally could be as
Yeah.
simple as like getting more sleep so that way you're like in a better mood and have more energy. Like
Yeah.
sometimes some things are so simple that to just be a better you. Like I think everybody should strive to be the best them as they can. You don't have to be the best ever. You just have to, try your best and try to do.
I think, and not to pick on that one guy, but people in that circumstance, I think they've just stopped growing.
Yeah,
And you have to be willing to grow.
yeah, and just always being a student, just like always growing, because like an oak tree never stops growing. Like
Always. Yeah. Until
it's
it
always,
dies and falls over, it's
until it
always
dies.
gonna.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Like
Mhm.
it's gonna continue to grow until it dies.
For
So
sure.
be an
Yeah.
oak tree.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Be an oak tree. I'm going to remember that. That's a good one. Be an oak tree. Be
I
solid,
just
be
pop with
grounded,
that
be
one.
strong, but still constantly grow. And I like it too because we were talking about incremental changes or normally how you
Yeah,
grow, right? Michael Phelps didn't like start swimming at 5 and win an Olympic medal at 6.
yeah,
I don't know when he started swimming, but he won it like in his adult life, right? So a lot of years of incremental growth. And he just never stopped. The difference between people that are mediocre or good to great is they just kept going.
yep,
They just kept trying. A lot of people get to good and just like, all right, cool, I'm done.
yeah,
I'm good enough. And then they stop. I've had years like that. About a decade ago, I grew an agency to a pretty good size. And I was like, cool, comfortable. I did kind of like a scenario, kind of like what you did with the subcontractor. I was like, I'm good
yeah,
enough. I stopped recruiting as much. I stopped scaling my marketing as much. And then shit started going really wrong.
yep.
And I realized that like I can't just stop. It has to keep going. That was a wake up experience for me for sure.
Yeah. No, it's crazy how many people don't realize that like when you get to your max, there's still so much more after that.
I'm fascinated by people that are at the very, 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 very top of their craft, right? And I think like let's just say like let's pick some skill. I don't care what it is. It could be frisbee golf. It could be darts. It could be you and I both shoot. It could be shooting. It could be
Yeah.
track. I don't care. Pick a skill, right? Could be business. Let's just say you got a skill. You got this thing that you want to do, and let's just say it takes you 5,000 hours to be really good. 90% of the top. You are 90% to being the best, right? And it took you
Yep.
5,000 hours of diligent work to get there. What a lot of people don't realize is that next 10% is probably 4 to 10 times more work than the previous 90.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
it is not another 100 hours and you get the next 10%. No, that last 10% is the hardest by far. You know, I would say even the top couple percent are probably the absolute because you get diminishing gains on your investment, you know.
Yeah.
Like the first time you try to learn to build a website or do a sales call or whatever, you spend 20, 50, 100 hours to do it and you get something that's reasonable. You
Yeah.
spend 1,000 hours, you get pretty good. You spend 20,000 hours, you're really good. But to be the absolute best, it takes an insane amount of dedication.
No,
Like, you know,
100, like, definitely. And it's, I'm going to circle back to the post that you made for this podcast. You said, you had said, like sales expert or something like that. And I was going to tell you, I was like, dude, I'm flattered, but I'm by no means an expert. I am still growing
I
completely.
think you are. I think you're in that 90%.
I
I do.
appreciate it, but
I do. But,
I
I mean,
really
doesn't
appreciate
mean you're in the 99.99999%. I'm not either.
it. I was like, when I read it, I was like, dude, I'm flattered. I showed my wife, I was like, I don't know what to say, but
Think about the masses and the numbers, what most people actually sell. Like I said, you just sold in 1 month what most people will sell in 3 to 6 months in their business.
yeah.
Right. So you are in that regard, you know. Um, the term may change a little bit if we take the top 10% and put them in a room. You might be at the middle to bottom of that tier, right? But
Yeah.
in the whole, looking at the whole 100%, you're absolutely an expert.
I really appreciate it. And I guess I don't consider myself an expert because of the people that I do surround myself with now, because of the friends that I've made in
Yep.
the industry. Because now, I mean, I have out of like, if I have 20 painting contractor friends, I think maybe 7 of them are below 7 figures. Like all of
Yeah,
my
I
friends
know.
are
All of them are.
they're
Yeah.
where I want to be.
But have
They're
you ever heard of something called the Dunning-Kruger effect?
no,
That you're what you're talking.
all these
Dude,
like
I'm the guy that knows a bunch of random shit. So
you're gonna be on my trivia team.
dude, I'm down. I'm down totally. Let's go down. We'll go shooting during the day. We'll do trivia at night. I'm down. Dunning-Kruger effect is a psychological effect that basically says the person that knows very little thinks they know a lot, and the person that gains more knowledge actually thinks they don't know anything. So you're on. So it comes out, and when you see like people like Tanner and all these Ellison and these guys, like, yeah, they're doing really great, but they're still humble about that greatness. It's
Yeah,
because when you get really good, you actually realize that even all that you know is still just not that much. And it's because you're in bigger circles. It's because you're surrounded by more knowledge and you realize that there's just an absolute ton, you're never going to know anything. But when you don't really know much, your circle is so small, you actually start thinking you know everything.
that's
You know,
very yeah.
and it's a documented psychological effect. Like that's a
That's
real deal.
yeah.
Look it up. Dunning-Kruger effect. It's fun.
No,
There
that's
was a
actually that's very true that happens because when I had my old friends from high school and college, I thought I was like, these guys are idiots. I'm so much smarter than them, and
yeah,
and now I'm like, I'm an idiot. These guys are so much smarter than me.
dude. There was this TV show. I forget what it's called. I just saw the short of it. But there was this TV show where they put like 6 random people on this show, and then they asked each one of them to rate them and everyone else in chronological order what the IQs were going to be. And one guy was just like a Marine, right?
Yeah,
And this one girl was like a doctor, like a literal PhD doctor, super
I saw
smart.
this.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I saw this. Yeah, I saw
So
this.
she put her estimated IQ as the highest in the entire room, and this Marine as the lowest. The Marine was the second highest in the room, and the
Yep.
girl was actually the lowest.
She
And
was
that is
actually the lowest.
actually the Dunning-Kruger effect. Like that's what it is, you know. So
Yeah,
because
I
she
did
had
see
a
that.
PhD and her circle of friends and having a degree's worth of knowledge, she thought she was super, super, super smart.
Yep,
Um, it's wild, 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 wild. Um,
it's definitely wild.
yeah, I do know a bunch of random things, though. Yeah.
That was like the third one you busted out for me today. Oh man.
Man. Well, bro, I think we've been on for quite a bit while. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it. You got any final tips for anybody here still around listening to us an hour and a half later?
um, One would be just be open minded with like reaching out to people. The painting
I love it.
contractor group is awesome. There's 190,000 members now.
It's so huge.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you might get some snarky comments on your questions, but like there's going to be a diamond in the rough. There's going to be some golden nuggets. Meet
Yeah.
people that do the same thing as you. The reason I got the opportunity that I have now is because when I started my business, I introduced myself to everybody that did the same thing as me. Always be hiring. Like we said, I didn't have a safety net. Always be hiring and always be learning would be that. Be an oak tree.
And be an oak tree. I
Be
love
an
it,
oak
dude.
tree.
I think we're gonna coin that. I'm gonna turn that to a social post later this week. We got to be an oak tree. I
Be
freaking
an
love it.
oak
Keep
tree.
growing. Keep growing a little. Dude, I appreciate you joining us, man. And thanks everyone still listening. I appreciate it. Jose, always a great time, man. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely, man. We'll see you soon.
All right, bye-bye. Hey, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. If you're looking for help growing your contracting business, I invite you to join my free community. In there, we go live with amazing trainings, share resources and downloads, plus you get free help from me and from peers. That link is down below to join, and we'll see you in the next video.